definitely. Moms. Boy, moms, for the most part, can be the same. Their care for their children and even other people's children are extremely strong. Moms, I can tell you, as a young man, how moms can be. I know how my mom is. My mom, when we talk on the phone, she wants to know, how are you doing? How's work? Are you getting enough rest? Yes, Mom, of course. I don't know, you sound tired. Mom, I'm fine. I'm getting enough rest. Are you sure? You're taking your vitamins? Yes. And then I remember recently, she asked me, have you gone to your physical? And I'm like, yes, Mom, I went to my physical. What were the results? Mom, I'm fine. What was your cholesterol? What was this? Are you, and it went on. And I almost said to her, Mom, you just want to go to the appointment with me next year? But my only fear is she just may say yes. Moms are like that, and when I go to see her, it's funny, even my clothes, and my mother's awesome, but I mean, it's like, hey, tuck your shirt tails out, or straighten your pants straight, or your shoelaces this way, and just the little details of doing it. It drives me nuts, but there's a small part that you also kind of like. Somebody she cares. But it's not only just me, but my friends can be the same way. I have a friend, Paul Castelloni, he's a big, tall Italian guy. And he's tough, and I mean, he's always, even when we were kids, very independent, and nobody tells him what to do. Except his little Italian mom, who stands about this tall. And like people tell people say, Paul, do this, I'll do it when I want. And it's like, everybody's like, okay. But not with this mom. She flat out will tell him, and of course, she'll say, go do this. And he'll go, Mom, I'll get it later. And she gives him the look. It's like my mom. It's like the end of discussion, and they give you the look. And it didn't have to be my mom. It could be my friend's mom would look at all of us, and we would do the same thing. But I know moms are like that, and as somebody reminded me this week as I was writing this, they said, dads can be in a way the same way, in particular, especially their daughters. And the more I thought about that, I was like, well, there's a lot of truth behind that. I know that my oldest daughter was driving, and she's been driving for a few years. And I still love to give her advice on it. Every time I see her go out in the car, it scares me to death. And I'm asking her, are your tires inflated? Is the oil changed? Is your windshield wipers set? Be careful. There's a lot of traffic downtown. And she said, Dad, come on. I know how to drive. And I'm like, I know you do, but the same standard all of you give. But there's a lot of crazy people out there, and I want to make sure that you drive well. I remember one night in particular, we were talking about this, and I think it was a little bit of rain, and I was giving her advice on that. She's like, Dad, we were about to sit down for dinner. She's like, please, I know how to drive. I've been driving for a long time. And I said, you know what, hold on. And I went in the bedroom and scrubbed around in the drawer a little bit, and I came out. I had a picture. And I said, you have to understand something with dads. And I pointed the picture to her, and it's a picture of my daughter when she's 3 years old at Disney World. And she's in a car, Goofy's car, and her little head is like this above the steering wheel. And it's like, this is how I see you. And that's when it dawned on me, that's how my mom sees me, and that's how my friend's mom sees. And you know what? The truth is, we always see the role of mom no matter what. And that's why you can be 40, 50, 60, it doesn't matter. When mom gives you the look, you do it. It reminded me of this particular story, thinking about moms, is because I love when you see the humanism of Jesus. And we see this in this particular story today. It's a story of Cana. We all know it, Cana of Galilee. It's probably one of the first ones we really learned about because it's Jesus' first miracle that we know about. And Jesus is at this great wedding. And obviously he's been invited, and so is his mother. Now there's been a lot of biblical debate back and forth of how much of it is symbolism and how much is it reality. And biblical scholars, of course, they'll argue about a fruit fly, so it doesn't matter. You go back and forth. But they've talked about the symbolism of John. John loves to give a lot of symbolism because John wants you to know exactly who Jesus is. He doesn't even want you to have to debate it. You know exactly who he is. And so we'll talk about a little bit of that symbolism in the story. On the other side, is it reality? Did it really happen? Well, one of the things, I studied archaeology in Virginia, And one of the big excitements is when they found a synagogue in Cana. And when they dug it up, they went underneath. And guess what was underneath? Stone jars. And so people were very excited. And again, they started debating about it. But the stone jars underneath are for purification. And they'd be about this wide and about this tall. And so they would use this for water purification. But it's always neat when you find something that relates to one of the stories. And so here we are. In today's story, again, it's about a wedding, and I've taught you about Jewish culture, and they take their weddings very serious. Weddings there, the wedding party, would be from 5 to 6 days. It would be usually to the next day of worship. And so they would have a great time. And of course, it depended on your economic status, etc., and what you did, but the whole village came. And they had a great time, day and night, day and night. I don't know how they did it. I'd be knocked out. But I mean, they just go on and have a wonderful time. Well, this particular day is the third day, it says, of the wedding. Notice the symbolism. 3 days. And Mary goes to Jesus and says they have run out of wine. And Jesus kind of shoots back at his mom, doesn't he? He says, you know, woman, what does that have to do with me or with you? What do you want me to do about it? Do you want me to go out and buy wine? Maybe he had money, maybe he didn't. And it's not like you just go to Walmart or you go to Kroger to go buy it. You have to do some traveling, and he's probably not in the mood. But he also tells her, I think I know what you're up to, but let me tell you, I'm not ready yet. My ministry is not ready. He's just started to pick out, not even all of his disciples yet. He's at the very beginning of his mission. But what I like is, if you notice, Mary and him are talking. He says no to her. But she doesn't back down. It reminds me of the woman, remember, who wanted the blessing of Christ and to help her daughter, and he pushes her away, but she comes right back at him. So does Mary. And what I actually picture, since we don't see any more words, is Jesus got the look. You notice that? She says, here's, they're out of wine. What does that have to do with me? The next thing she says is she tells the servants, you do what he asks. You do exactly what he tells you. Now, we don't know if Mary has seen miracles before, maybe in the house. We don't know. Did she talk to God? Has God revealed something to her? Or is it over time that we always hear of Mary pondering things in her heart? Remember that the shepherds have come, and she ponders all that information they give about God in her heart. Remember when he's at the temple, and what does it say? Mary and Joseph first listen to Jesus and what he's saying to them, and they're amazed by what he has to say. And then it says Mary ponders it in her heart. So maybe she knew exactly what Jesus could do, and maybe I think that Jesus knew exactly that his mom knew, but he wasn't ready. But I believe got the look, and then she tells them, and I love it, do what he tells you to do. And they do. Jesus says, go, get water, fill all these big stone jars. And again, they're about this tall, and they're about this big around, and they do. It says they fill it to the brim. I don't know if he even prayed over it or how he did it, but immediately it says, he says, now, take it and go send it to the steward. And the steward gets a hold of it. And I love the steward's reaction. I mean, of course, he would sip it at first, and he's shocked by how good it is. Now, that doesn't tell me, did the poor family buy really just bad wine or what? Because in a way, it's almost insulting. But he does. He says, wow. Most people serve the good wine first and the inferior wine last. But you serve the best first. Notice the symbolism? The first will be last, and the last will be first. And so, even the bridegroom does not know where it comes from. The people don't know where it comes from. The steward doesn't know where it comes from. The only people that know where it comes from is Mary, Jesus, maybe the disciples. It doesn't even tell us the disciples were there. And the servants. That's it. Which can tell us that Jesus works in our lives, even when we don't know that it's happening. You see, Mary had faith. Mary had faith in God and how God will take care of us even as individuals. She was so concerned for this couple, especially for the bridegroom, because this would have been humiliating for this family. To run out of wine, people would have talked about this for a long time. I know you can't imagine people actually talking about others, but it did happen back then too. But Mary had faith. Mary knew, the love of God and working through Christ. She understood the power of God working through Jesus. And she also understood the miracles of God working through Jesus. What I'm saying is Mary had total faith in God through her son Christ, and she took action. She was not going to let even Jesus himself say no to the power of God. And as a result, a miracle occurred. My question for you today is, do you take Mary's advice? In other words, do you really listen to the words, listen to him, do as he tells you? Do we really listen to what Mary has to say? Because we should. The advice is wonderful. To truly listen to what Christ has to say in our own lives and to take action, to do what he tells you. The truth is, all of us can have that internal voice that happens sometimes of making us say, maybe I should help with this, or maybe I should do that. And the truth is, many of us ignore it. I don't have time. I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough this, or I can't do that, or other things are in the way, when God is truly calling each and every one of us. The truth is, all of us in our life can run out of wine. What I mean is, we can run out of our own control. In other words, I keep saying in other words, but what I'm really trying to say is we can all come to the end of our rope. There are things in our lives and other people's lives and in our community that seem like it's no longer in our control. But it is when we can ask Christ and listen to him, to take direction from Christ himself. If he tells us to worship more, we should. If he tells us to pray more, we should. If he's telling us to help our community, we should. If he's telling you to go to Sunday school, you should. If he's telling you to teach Sunday school, you should. Doing what Christ asked us to do, we will see things in our life and the lives around us happen. This is the season of Epiphany. It's a season to walk with Christ, just like the Magi. It's a time to walk and really discern what it is that God has in store in our life. Because you've heard me say this before, but it's an ongoing conversation. It goes on. It's what our whole life is about, is to have communication with God. And not only talk to God, but to listen with our ears and with our heart. We also need to know what gifts do we bring. Because God has given each and every one of you gifts. And do we share it with our neighbor? Listen. Listen to the advice. Listen to Christ. Listen to the things he wants from your own life. After all, it's Mom who's talking. Maybe we should listen before we get the look. Amen.